We're going to be talking about DNA today. DNA is what's located on our chromosomes. We know that chromosomes can't be visible until cell division, and during cell division, this DNA coils up to form chromosomes. We call it the blueprint of life because DNA has specific codes on it that's going to code for proteins, and that's what makes us the way we are. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and like I just said, all of your instructions for making proteins are located on this strand. We talked about this in chapter 2, but DNA is called a polymer. Poly means many. So when we're talking about a polymer, it is a very large molecule made up of smaller molecules. So it has many smaller molecules. That's where you get polymer. Now those smaller molecules are called monomers. So monomers are, mono means one. And so each of these individual monomers combine together to form this large polymer, or in this case, DNA. Your DNA is called a double helix. It's because it's shaped like a twisted ladder. DNA is actually made up of two separate strands, and they just connect right there in the middle, and we call that a double helix. So if we look closer at one strand, this is one side of your DNA molecule. You have alternating phosphate, which is those red molecules, and then the green molecules are the deoxyribose, and those alternate all the way down the DNA. Connected to the deoxyribose are these middle things, and those are called nitrogen bases. These blue nitrogen bases are actually what forms the code on the DNA. Now, I just said that a DNA is a polymer because it's made up of many smaller things. Those smaller things are known as a nucleotide. So a nucleotide is a smaller unit that makes up the larger DNA molecule. One nucleotide is going to be this phosphate and deoxyribose, and then one nitrogen base. So here is one nucleotide. So along the DNA chain, many nucleotides form together to make up one strand, and then it connects with the second strand. Those nitrogen bases that make up the middle, there's only 4 of them, which seems weird that our entire genetic makeup is made up of 4 nitrogen bases, but they are cytosine, thymine, adenine, and guanine. So if we're looking at those 2 strands put together, you have the phosphate and nitrogen bases, and the phosphate and deoxyribose, and the nitrogen bases are right here in the middle, and that's what holds them together. Now when you're looking at the nitrogen bases, they notice that adenine always has to pair with thymine, and cytosine always has to pair with guanine. So A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G. Now what holds these together are called hydrogen bonds. So if we're looking at a DNA strand, those nitrogen bases are held together by weak nitrogen bonds. And they're weak because they have to be able to separate during DNA replication. So here's a picture of it, all the way down your DNA strand, and you can see that you have the C pairing with G, and the G pairing with C, and the A always pairs with T. It always has to happen that way. Or that's what, if it doesn't happen that way, let's say if A paired with G, that's where you can start to see a mutation in people's or organisms' DNA.